Hey, how's it going, everybody? What's up? It's Techno Kais, and today I'll be going over basically it's a continuation video of what I did last week, but this time I have the simple version of the ER diagram and then the more in depth version of it. So I'm just going to start off with talking about how each of these entities relate to one another, just in the simple version. So we're going to start with the patient, which is going to be the source of most of the relationships. So the patient, they work at the occupation, which influences the behavior and hobbies, then goes to determines risk. And it also goes down. The patient lives in a geographic location, which determines the risk, and that it also geographical location also determines the hospitals. And it got a little funky with the arrows here. Like I tried to make it as like flowy as like I see the arrows are pointing down. I was gonna put another determines diamond over here, but I just didn't want that to get clustered, so that's why I'm explaining it. But anyway, it determines the hospitals, which also goes back to determine the risk. So I tried to make that as self-explanatory as possible. Hopefully it's as self-explanatory as I think. If not, I can change it. It's not a big deal. But that's basically the gist of this simple version. So somebody looking at this, they could just see these all obviously relate to each other, which ends up determining the risk. And that would be whether that be a risk factor number or like a status, like how much risk you have. I don't know yet, but so then this goes into this ER diagram, which is more in depth, and I'll try to go over and explain this a bit then. So it still basically starts with patient, even though everything relates to one another. And I have the primary key, which is going to be the patient ID, which will just be a number to identify the patient. And then that the patient box goes to the foreign key of race, which is the only thing I can really think of with that relates to the geographical location, which is basically race anyway. Then most of these things I have as not null, because if we're determining a risk factor number, where's that at? I know I have it somewhere. Yeah, risk level. If that's what we're going to determine in the end, we're going to need not null things. So that's why I have most of these not null besides like the living locations, because obviously if you live in a certain country, you're not going to have a town and a city and a state. So that's why I have those as null. But other than that, I think everything else is not null because that'll determine the risk factor. But yeah, so we come down here. All these are just text because I didn't know what else they could really be. And then we have a couple Boolean things over here because they can just be true, false. Like, have you had COVID already? False, whatever. And let's see down here, we get to the hospital access. It's going to be another number. Or I guess that could be, it could be, and it's just the level of access. It probably can be either or. And then there's the numbers of each patient and the working staff, the max capacity. Obviously that can't be null. Then down here I have the behavior and hobbies, which connects from the risk factors. So I kind of have these intertwining with each other compared to my last time I had them as a flowy, like a flow chart type. But there's the wear mask, which is Boolean, and then we have job risk, which will go up to the foreign or primary key. It's a foreign key here, but it's a primary key of the occupation, and then that'll just determine the rest of the ER diagram. And then I have my tables here, my tuples for, I don't know how to make this little, there we go, so we can see it all in one. So we see, actually I don't know if you'll be able to see that on video, so I'll just scroll in and I'll go slide and wherever it's at. Okay, so we have the patient ID, which compared to last week I didn't have that, but now I do, and I put some random numbers in here just to see what it will end up looking like. And if we go across, we can see that each person has different risks just because of how they ended up filling in all of the different like categories. And like, like obviously this person here, they haven't had COVID, they don't have symptoms, they work inside at home with 0 coworkers, they don't party, and they wear a mask. Obviously they're not going to have as much risk, and they're 17 years old, and they're not going to have as much risk as this person who or this one. The odds are kind of stacked against this person just because they're in such a big place. They haven't had COVID, they have symptoms, they've had a heart attack, they work inside in an office with 132 coworkers, they party, they don't wear a mask, and they don't distance. So obviously that's kind of something, and I didn't even look at the age. That's not going to happen. But anyway, it's all an example, so it makes sense. But that's how I did it for this week, and that's pretty much all I have to say. So I will see you guys in the next video.